The ancient stars we see tonight will one day fall like sparks from a dying fire. Mountains will crumble into dust. The oceans will boil and overflow. The sky, once stretched like a blue canopy, will be torn apart. And then the humanity will raised again, not to live, but for judgment. The story of the universe is not written only in light, but in mathematics too. Every galaxy, every atom, every heartbeat obeys laws that seem eternal. Yet even those laws carry within them the prophecy of their own end. Long before telescopes watched the galaxies fleeing from us, the Quran spoke of the heavens being rolled up like scrolls. Now, equations whispered on chalkboards echo that same fate. Physics has become a kind of scripture, not of revelation, but of reason, trying to describe how all things will fade back into the silence from which they came.
When the American astronomer Edwin Hubble looked through his telescope in 1929, he saw galaxies moving away, their light stretched into red wavelengths, a phenomenon we now call redshift. That simple observation proved that space itself is expanding. In Einstein's general relativity, space and time are woven into one fabric called space-time, and gravity is not a force pulling at objects, but the curvature of that fabric. Einstein wrote it mathematically in his field equation. In words, this means geometry tells matter how to move, and matter tells geometry how to curve. It was the most beautiful marriage between mathematics and reality humanity had ever seen. Yet it also meant that if space can curve, it can also stretch. And if it can stretch, it can tear. The universe began as a singularity, a point of infinite density and zero volume, where the equations of physics themselves break down. In the first fraction of a second, space inflated faster than the speed of light. Energy cooled, matter condensed, and the cosmic story began. But if there was a beginning, could there also be an end? A mirror image of that primordial birth? For decades, cosmologists debated between two possibilities. The first, the Big Crunch, imagines gravity eventually overcoming expansion. Over billions of years, galaxies would slow, halt, and fall back toward one another. Temperatures would rise as everything collapses into a final singularity, the inverse of the Big Bang. In this scenario, the universe is cyclical, a cosmic heartbeat that expands and contracts eternally. It resembles what some mystics and ancient religions already intuited. Creation as breath, the inhale and exhale of the divine. But in the late 20th century, data from supernovae revealed something astonishing. Rather than slowing, the expansion of the universe is speeding up. A mysterious energy, invisible and omnipresent, pushes galaxies apart. Physicists called it dark energy, and it makes up about 68% of the cosmos. No one knows what it is. In the equations of relativity, it appears as the term L, the cosmological constant, the same symbol Einstein once inserted and later regretted. He called it his greatest blunder, but it may yet prove to be his most prophetic insight.
If dark energy keeps accelerating the universe, galaxies will drift away until even their light can no longer reach us. Billions of years later, stars will exhaust their fuel, planets will freeze, and black holes will evaporate through what Stephen Hawking described mathematically as Hawking radiation, quantum particles escaping from the edge of darkness. Eventually, nothing will remain but thin, cold radiation spread across infinite emptiness. Physicists call this the heat death or big freeze. The mathematics behind this fate lies in entropy, a term from thermodynamics describing disorder. Ludwig Boltzmann gave it a formula, where SSS is entropy, KKK is Boltzmann's constant, and WWW is the number of microscopic ways a system can be arranged. In essence, entropy always increases. Energy becomes less usable over time, like a candle burning until no wax remains. This one law gives time its arrow. When the universe reaches maximum entropy, when all gradients of energy are gone, no process can occur. Time, as we know it, stops. This is what physicists call thermal equilibrium, the final stillness where nothing changes. It sounds cold and lifeless, yet there is strange beauty in it, the ultimate equality of all things. It echoes the mystic idea that the universe will return to unity, not as life, but as light diffused so evenly that there is no longer separation.
Still, not all scientists accept such a frozen ending. Roger Penrose, one of the great mathematical physicists of our age, offered a vision called conformal cyclic cosmology, CCC. In this model, after the universe becomes a smooth sea of radiation, scale itself becomes meaningless, and a new Big Bang can emerge from that scale-free state. Using the mathematics of conformal mapping, Penrose showed that the infinite future of one universe can be transformed into the beginning of another. What we see as the end is simply a different measure of the same geometry. His theory turns Einstein's space-time into an eternal loop, a mathematical resurrection of creation. Evidence for such cycles may already be written in the faint glow of the cosmic microwave, background radiation, CMB, the afterglow of the Big Bang. Penrose claimed to find Hawking points, subtle circular patterns in that radiation, suggesting energy bursts from black holes of a previous universe. The claim remains debated, but even its possibility fills one with awe, that we might be living inside the echo of another cosmos's death. If the universe can die, could it also be reborn? In quantum physics, tiny particles constantly flicker in and out of existence, appearing from nothing and vanishing again in a fraction of a second. To physicists, even nothing isn't truly empty. The vacuum itself has energy, known as zero-point energy, meaning creation is not a one-time event but an ongoing vibration of existence. This gives rise to the idea of a quantum vacuum fluctuation, where whole universes could spontaneously appear out of nothing, supported by equations in quantum field theory. But in science, nothing still contains the potential for everything. Here, physics begins to touch philosophy. The ancient question, why is there something rather than nothing, still has no final answer. Stephen Hawking suggested that the laws of physics could make the universe arise from nothing on their own. Yet he also wondered, what breathes fire into the equations? What gives the laws of nature their reality? Physicist John Wheeler believed consciousness might be part of that answer. His idea of a participatory universe suggests that observers aren't just watching. Their very act of observation helps create reality. In quantum mechanics, a particle can exist in many possible states until it's observed. Once measured, it collapses into one definite form. Wheeler took this further, proposing that the universe itself exists because it can observe itself through conscious beings like us. In this view, mind and matter are two parts of the same reality. If consciousness and the cosmos are linked, then the end of the universe would also mean the end of observation, silence after the last witness. But perhaps, as some philosophers say, consciousness doesn't vanish. It returns to the greater whole, merging back into the source. Modern physics also hints that space and time might emerge from information itself. In some quantum gravity theories, The universe is not made of matter or energy, but of bits of information, ones and zeros. Physicist Seth Lloyd calculated that the universe could have performed about operations since the Big Bang, making it the largest quantum computer imaginable. If that's true, the end of the universe might simply be the moment when this cosmic computation finishes, the final line of its code. Beyond these physical ideas lies a deeper question. Does the universe have meaning if it must end? Philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that time and space exist only as part of human perception, ways our minds organize experience. If that's true, the end of the universe wouldn't be an objective destruction, but the collapse of the very conditions that allow us to conceive existence. When time ends, difference ends, and what remains is unity.
Friedrich Nietzsche faced the same question and found both despair and hope in his idea of eternal recurrence, that every event repeats endlessly through infinite time. He called it the greatest weight, a test of whether one could love life so fully as to live it again forever. Strangely, some modern cosmological models echo this, like Roger Penrose's cyclic cosmology or theories of the multiverse, where new universes continually arise from quantum fluctuations. These ideas may sound far-fetched, but the mathematics behind them is solid. The laws of relativity, quantum field theory, and thermodynamics all point to one truth. The universe has a finite age, and its story is written in the balance of energy, entropy, and geometry. The deeper science goes, the closer it comes to the language of metaphysics. The curvature of space mirrors, the curvature of thought, both suggesting a hidden harmony behind everything. Black holes offer perhaps the clearest glimpse of that mystery. Their boundary, called the Schwarzschild radius, marks the point where not even light can escape. Yet quantum theory predicts that black holes emit faint radiation and slowly evaporate. Still, information cannot truly be destroyed. So where does it go? Physicists like Leonard Susskind proposed that information is stored on the black hole's surface, forming a kind of hologram. This leads to the holographic principle, the idea that our three-dimensional reality might itself be a projection from a deeper two-dimensional surface. If so, the entire universe, and even consciousness, could be part of a vast holographic image. When the final stars fade and black holes disappear, perhaps only this holographic information will remain. Pure pattern without substance, mathematics without matter. Could this be the scientific version of the Quranic preserved tablet where all creation is recorded? In the fading light of cosmology, science, and spirituality seem to meet. Physicist Carlo Rovelli wrote, "The world is not a collection of things, it is a collection of events. Every particle, every person, every galaxy is a brief interaction, a story written in time. When the last event ends, time itself will vanish, but the story, the structure of existence may remain." The end, then, is not pure nothingness but a return, from complexity back to simplicity, from form back to essence. In thermodynamics, this is equilibrium. In relativity, singularity. In philosophy, unity. The names differ, but the truth remains the same. The universe began with a mathematical spark, a whisper in the void that said, "Let there be light." And when the final photon fades, perhaps that whisper will echo once more. Not as an ending, but as the beginning of another verse in the eternal poem of existence.
The Quran says, "When the sun is folded up, and when the stars fall, losing their luster, and when the mountains are made to pass away." Surah At-Takwir. And again in Surah Al-Infitar, "When the sky is cleft asunder, and when the stars are scattered, and when the seas burst forth." Each verse paints the dissolution of the cosmos as if it were a single act of divine will. Commentators like Ibn Kathir wrote that these verses describe not symbolic decay, but a physical unmaking of the heavens. The folding of the sun, termed as kuwirat, implies not extinguishing but collapsing inward, as a scroll rolls back upon itself. Al-Qurtubi saw this as the collapse of all celestial order, the death of natural law as we know it. But the Quran goes further. In Surah Al-Anbiya, it declares, "On the day when we shall roll up the heavens like a scroll rolled up for books, as we began the first creation, we shall repeat it, a promise binding upon us." This single verse carries a universe of meaning. What science today calls the Big Crunch, a cosmic collapse of all matter and energy back into singularity, is described here with startling poetic precision. The universe began from a single point, a fact now confirmed by cosmology through the Big Bang theory, and it will end as it began, folded back into the essence of its creation. The philosopher Fakhr al-Din al-Razi saw in this verse a cycle of divine creation and dissolution, where each world ends only for another to arise. Mullah Sadra, in his Asfar Arba'a, interpreted the resurrection not as mere return of bodies, but as a metaphysical rebirth of reality itself, an elevation of the cosmos from material existence to pure intelligible being. To him, Qiyamah, resurrection, is the universe awakening to its final consciousness. In Islamic eschatology, the end of the cosmos begins with the blowing of the trumpet, Asur, by the angel Israfil. As described in Quran, "And the trumpet will be blown, and whoever is in the heavens and whoever is on the earth will fall unconscious, except whom Allah wills. Then it will be blown again, and behold, they will be standing, looking on." Az-Zumar 39:68. The two trumpet blasts symbolize two universal moments, death and resurrection. The first blast marks the total annihilation of creation. Time stops. The movement of galaxies ceases. Everything collapses into silence. Then comes the second blast, the rebirth. Consciousness returns, the dead awaken, and the new creation begins. This idea, annihilation followed by renewal, is found throughout Islamic cosmology. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Between the two trumpet blasts, there will be 40. Sahih Muslim 2955. The narrator, Hazrat Abu Huraira, said, "I do not know whether he meant 40 days, 40 months, or 40 years. This ambiguity itself is meaningful. It is time, but not similar to time we know. Don't worry, I explain you in detail. After the first trumpet, the normal flow of time ends. Between annihilation and resurrection, the universe enters a timeless state, so human measures like days, years, or epochs no longer apply. So even if Allah says 40, it could mean 40 heartbeats in a realm beyond physics, 40 epochs in a timeless suspension, or simply a divine phase known only to Him." The Quran thus presents the universe not as eternal, but as living, created, growing, aging, and destined to die, only to be reborn. It mirrors human life itself. The Quran says, "He who created you the first time will bring you back again." 1751. From dust to consciousness to dust again. The human and the cosmic share the same fate. Qiyamah is not only the day humans are resurrected, it is the day reality itself rises again in a higher form. In Sufi metaphysics, this sequence reflects the eternal principle of fana and wabaka, meaning annihilation and subsistence. All things must pass away to be reborn in the real. The death of the universe, in this sense, is the fana of the cosmos, a dissolving of multiplicity back into the unity of divine being. Some Sufis, such as Ibn Arabi in Fusus al-Hikam, further describe creation as an endless breathing of the divine, the Nafas ar-Rahman, breath of the merciful. In each breath, worlds appear and vanish, not in linear time, but in cycles of manifestation. The day of resurrection, then, is not a distant apocalypse, but the final breath of this universe, when the divine inhalation draws all forms back into unity. Ibn Arabi wrote, "The cosmos is perishing every moment and being renewed every moment. The ignorant think it remains." Modern physics oddly echoes this. Quantum fluctuations, constant birth and death of particles, and the idea that what we call existence is a continuous recreation. What the mystic saw as divine renewal, the scientist measures as quantum activity. Now, a shaking question comes. How will it feel when the world ends? The Quran gives sensory detail to this final moment. The roar of the trumpet, the sky glowing red, the earth shaking violently, and the graves splitting open. Surah Al-Zalzala 99:1-2 says, "When the earth is shaken with its final earthquake, and the earth discharges its burdens." Commentators understood burdens as both literal, the dead, and metaphorical, the earth's secrets and hidden truths. The earth itself becomes conscious. In Sahih Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad described the end as coming so suddenly that a man will be repairing his water tank, and the trumpet will be blown. It is not a gradual decay, but an instant divine command. The Prophet once asked his companions, "Do you know what that day is?" and then recited, "On that day, mankind will be like scattered moths, and the mountains will be like fluffed wool." Surah Al-Qariyah. The image is haunting, humanity fluttering aimlessly as creation loses its anchor. The Quran's final promise is not extinction, but transformation. The universe will be remade on a different plane of existence, no longer governed by decay, gravity, or time. On that day, the earth will be changed to another earth, and so will the heavens. Surah Ibrahim 14:48. The scholars of Tafsir explained this new earth as one without sin, death, or imperfection, a purified field upon which the final reality unfolds. Al-Razi called it Alam al-Jaza, the world of recompense, where forms reflect the truth of their deeds. From the Quranic vision emerges a profound symmetry. The end of the universe is not a catastrophe, but a divine act of renewal. As Allah says, "As we began the first creation, we shall repeat it." 21:104. It is not destruction but return, not loss but completion. In the same way a seed must break for a tree to grow, the cosmos must collapse for eternity to bloom.
In the Christian vision, the end is both terror and promise. The final book of the Bible, Revelation, opens with thunder and fire, with angels blowing trumpets and seals breaking one by one. It speaks of the stars falling to earth, of a sky that rolls away like a scroll, of a world trembling beneath divine judgment. To some, these are symbols. To others, a literal prophecy of cosmic collapse. Yet through the chaos, a pattern emerges. Destruction is never the last word. After the earth burns, John sees a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. The apocalypse, then, is not only an ending, it is the unveiling of something eternal. Christian mystics like St. Augustine saw it as the final purification of creation, a world freed from decay. The fire that consumes is the same fire that renews. The Jewish imagination of the end is quieter but deeply symbolic. In rabbinic texts, time unfolds like the Sabbath week, 6,000 years of human striving, followed by a 7th millennium of divine rest. It is a cosmic sabbatical, the earth itself returning to its creator. The Zohar, the book of Kabbalistic mysticism, speaks of creation as divine light shattered into fragments, sparks scattered through the material world. The end of days is not apocalypse, but tikkun olam, the restoration of all things, when every spark returns to the infinite. The Ein Sof. Jewish thinkers like Isaac Luria describe this not as annihilation, but reintegration, the universe dissolving back into the unity from which it came. Strangely, this mystic idea mirrors modern cosmology's prediction of entropy, everything returning to uniform stillness, energy, dispersed into a perfect equilibrium. Where physics calls it heat death, the mystic calls it peace. Far to the east, the Hindu cosmology sees not one creation, but infinite cycles of them. Universes born and destroyed in the breath of Brahma, the creator. Time here is vast beyond comprehension. One day of Brahma, one kalpa, lasts 4.32 billion human years. At the end of each day, the universe dissolves into cosmic sleep, and when Brahma awakens, creation begins anew. Within each cycle, humanity moves through 4 ages, the yugas, from the golden age of truth and virtue to the dark age, the Kali Yuga, the age of ignorance and corruption. In this era, Dharma weakens, chaos spreads, and the gods themselves withdraw. Yet even this decay has a purpose. When the balance of existence is lost, Vishnu, the preserver, returns as Kalki, the final avatar, to destroy evil and restore harmony. Then Shiva performs his Tandava, the dance of dissolution, reducing all matter to ash and silence. After the flames, Brahma opens his eyes again, and a new creation blooms from the void. The cycle repeats endlessly, like a cosmic heartbeat. Modern astrophysicists might call it the Big Crunch and Big Bang, a universe expanding, collapsing, and reborn. But to the Vedas, this was already written. The Rig Veda says, "There was neither non-existence nor existence then. The one breathed without breath by its own power." For the Hindu seers, even destruction is divine rhythm. Lila, the play of God. Buddhism inherits this vast sense of cosmic time but turns the gaze inward. The Buddha taught that everything that arises must pass away: worlds, suns, bodies, thoughts. The Aganya Sutta describes universes forming, flourishing, and dissolving in endless succession, each collapse followed by rebirth, like waves upon the shore of time. When a world ends, it burns with 7 suns, until even the oceans vanish and space is filled with fire. Yet there is no divine wrath here, only the natural law of impermanence. All conditioned things, even universes, are subject to change. In Mahayana thought, entire realms of existence, Buddha worlds, exist simultaneously, each with its own beginning and end. Some collapse while others awaken, suggesting a multiverse of moral and spiritual dimensions. But the truest end of the world, the Buddha said, is not when the earth perishes, it is when ignorance perishes. When illusion burns away, and the mind reaches enlightenment, the universe itself is transcended. What science describes as heat death, Buddhism sees as nirvana, not annihilation, but liberation from the cycle. Long before the Abrahamic faiths, Zoroastrianism offered one of humanity's earliest visions of cosmic finality. In its sacred texts, the Avesta, the universe begins as a battleground between Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light, and Angra Mainyu, the Spirit of Darkness. Time itself was created to allow this conflict to unfold and be resolved. When the final age arrives, evil will be destroyed in a river of molten metal. The righteous will pass through it unharmed, while the wicked are purified. Then the dead will rise, and the world will be renewed, immortal, perfect, free from decay. This cosmic restoration, called Frashokareti, ends the reign of death itself. Zoroastrianism profoundly shaped later Jewish and Christian eschatology. The ideas of resurrection, final judgment, and the triumph of good over evil all echo this ancient Persian vision. The fire of the end is not vengeance, but renewal, a motif that would later reappear in the Quran, where God's light outshines all darkness and the heavens are rolled up like parchment. In the valley of the Nile, the Egyptians imagined a universe sustained by divine order, Ma'at, and threatened by chaos, Isfet. Each night, the sun god Ra sailed through the underworld, battling the serpent Apophis to ensure the dawn would come. But the day Ra failed, the day the serpent won, the cosmos would unravel. Yet even then, rebirth followed. Just as the Nile floods and recedes, creation too was a cycle of death and renewal. The ancient Book of the Dead tells of souls journeying through judgment, weighed against the feather of truth. Those who were pure joined Osiris in eternal life, mirroring the same moral thread found in every vision of the end. The universe ends, but the soul continues. In Greek philosophy, the cosmos itself was alive, a breathing, reasoning being. Heraclitus wrote, "This world neither God nor man made, but it always was and is and shall be, an ever-living fire." To him, fire was the principle of change, the eternal destroyer and creator. Centuries later, the Stoics would build on this, teaching that the universe periodically burns in a cosmic conflagration, an ekpyrosis, only to be reborn exactly as before. This eternal recurrence, later echoed by Nietzsche, suggested that the universe is a perfect loop, forever repeating itself in divine logic. The Greeks did not see apocalypse as punishment, but as balance. The cosmos is a self-correcting system. What decays is reborn. What ends returns in another form. Even in Plato's, Timaeus, the world's soul, though divine, is bound to cycles, perfection arising from imperfection, eternity pulsing through time. In Chinese philosophy, especially Taoism, the universe is not driven by struggle, but harmony. The Tao, the way, is the unseen current that gives birth to all things and draws them back again. Lao Tzu wrote, "Returning is the motion of the Tao." The end, in Taoist cosmology, is not destruction, but return, the merging of yin and yang, light and dark, being and non-being. When balance is lost, the universe simply flows back into the source. There is no wrathful God, no judgment, only transformation. This vision, though serene, resonates with modern cosmology's quietest possibility, the heat, death of the universe. Not a fiery apocalypse, but an eternal stillness, energy balanced, perfectly, motion ceasing, the cosmos dissolving into tranquility. What physicists describe as thermodynamic equilibrium, Taoists called harmony. Among the Hopi people of North America, prophecy speaks of worlds before ours, worlds destroyed by fire, ice, and flood. Each ended when humanity lost its balance with nature. We now live in the fourth world, already fraying under the weight of greed and disconnection. Yet even here, hope remains. The Hopi say the fifth world will emerge after purification, guided by those who remember the old harmony between humans, earth, and the Great Spirit. Their myth carries the same truth as every other. The world dies not because it must, but because we forget how to live. In the north, the Norse sagas speak of Ragnarok, the fate of the gods. The wolf Fenrir breaks his chains, the serpent Jormungandr rises from the sea, and the sky burns as the gods fall in battle. The sun and moon are devoured, the world sinks beneath the waves. Yet from the ocean's quiet surface, a new earth rises, green, pure, and untouched. Two humans, Leaf and Lifthrusir, emerge from the trunk of the world tree to begin again. Even in this tale of doom, the pattern of rebirth holds true. The universe ends only to breathe again. Across all these traditions, the same melody plays beneath different words. Destruction is a doorway. Whether it is the fire of revelation, the dance of Shiva, the Tao's return, or the heat, death of physics, each describes the same eternal movement, from form to formlessness, from being to becoming. In the language of faith, it is judgment. In the language of science, entropy. In the language of philosophy, renewal. Every vision agrees that the end is not meaningless. It is part of the same intelligence that brought the cosmos into being. Perhaps this is why even the cold equations of physics echo with poetry. The second law of thermodynamics, that energy moves from order to disorder, is also a reminder that everything, even the stars, must one day rest. The cosmologists who describe the universe collapsing in a big crunch or tearing apart in a big rip are unknowingly retelling the same story sung by prophets and poets. And perhaps, just as the ancients believed, what follows that end may not be silence, but another beginning. When the Quran says, "On that day, the earth will be changed to another earth, and the heavens as well," and Revelation echoes, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth." It is as though two mirrors face each other across time, reflecting the same truth. Hindu seers called it the rebirth of Brahma. The Stoics called it ekpyrosis. The Hopi called it the fifth world. Physicists call it a new universe born from quantum fluctuation. Different languages, one destiny. And so, the story of the universe may not end in darkness after all. The fire, the silence, the stillness, all may be preludes to another breath of creation. What began with light may end not with extinction, but with remembrance, the universe folding back into the divine thought that dreamed it. The cosmos may die, yes, but perhaps only the way a seed dies before it flowers.